years in the public school system. My dad went to law school on the GI Bill. You know, good jobs. They lived in a brownstone in Park Slope. In the 1960s, they always, whenever I talk about the campaign and I'm bragging about how smart some idea was or something, they always remind me that in 1963 they bought a limestone duplex on a park block in Park Slope for less than $50,000. So they're clearly the smart ones in the household. But I also think about the experience of my grandmother and grandfather I mentioned earlier. They lived in a Mitchell-Lama co-op. So they never got wealthy on it. They didn't cash in, but they lived in a stable neighborhood, in a stable community. They were walking distance from the services on their neighborhood shopping strip. They didn't have to, they never had a driver's license, either one of them. They never needed one. From living in Coney Island or living in Riverdale, next to a neighborhood shopping strip, they never needed one. That type of life that allows that type of movement around, combined with the idea that we have such experiences in New York that keep you young, even things like this. I bet you if they have a candidate forum in Des Moines, Iowa, it wouldn't be this much fun. I'm telling you. I bet you that there are cities that you could, if you had some way to measure it, that you can say having the museums, having the libraries, having the shows, having the camaraderie, having the diversity, this keeps us all a little bit younger. And so I can't imagine living or growing old anywhere else. But it's also important, and as a philosophical matter, this is what I think defines my campaign. It's also important that we don't just sit back and say it's always been that way, so it's always going to be that way. Every generation presents us with a new challenge to say, what are we going to do to leave a community, a city, better than the one that we inherited? Inherited from you. You did it. You did it for me and my wife and my 18-month-old. How do I do it for him and his kids? That's the challenge. And I think what it comes down to is when you have conversations at great civic moments like this, where we have campaigns for who's going to lead the city for the next 4 years, you have to say to yourself, what do I want that foundation of that campaign to be? I've said I want it to be ideas, not rounding up famous people, not rounding up organizations, not rounding up democratic clubs or unions, and those are all honorable people, but I want it to be about aspirational thoughts. I put out a book of 64 new ideas, a lot of them focusing on life in the city for seniors, and I'm going to keep doing that. And I can tell you, you might not turn on your TV or read your newspaper when I'm mayor and say, that guy got it 100% right, but you will know that as a middle-class New Yorker, I want to make this continue to be the capital of the middle class, not only for families, but for seniors, for children, for everyone. And I want my son Jordan to bounce his grandkids on his knee and say what you've made it possible for me to say, which is every generation has left New York just a little bit better than the generation before. I'm committed to doing that, and I want to thank you for doing it for me and my family.